What's up, demons? It's your boy, back at it again to pull myself onto the straight and narrow. It's a good job I do these yearly reviews, because during my sorting process, I realised I hadn't released a Steam Curator review for Chex Quest HD or the Mythic Ocean Prologue despite making videos for them for some reason. One of them I didn't number rate, in fairness, but when I was counting my numbers it did feel like some were missing. Speaking of which, this has been probably my most consistent year for production, I would argue. Not the most frequent, but my fortnightly schedule seems to be a sweet spot most of the time to release videos. Yes, this one has come after a gap, but just ignore that. In general, the trend is that I've tried some really good games this year. I had more unrated games this year than in years prior, partly due to not reading Steam pages properly and playing early access or demo games by accident, which I then felt it was unfair to rate. There's been some promising content with unfortunate flaws, some confusing content in the case of Under What, and some really simply premised but very well executed content as well. The genre mix has been pretty broad, and I've enjoyed the change of pace that's brought between playing each game. The MMO side of things I'll admit I've steered away from for a bit due to sheer lack of time to play, but I've also found that the games I thought would be small and easy to talk about turned into video essay-length lectures somehow during my writing and recording process, and that then turned into about 7 hours of editing. I've had a few internally contentious ratings this year between Fanatic Zeal, To Raze and Jivana, and with time to think between giving my ratings, I'm going to drop Fanatic Zeal to a 6.5 out of 10. I said I didn't want to be too harsh, and yes, I stand by not knowing that game style too well, but I do think more could have been done to mitigate the swordsman game style and all the vulnerabilities it gave you that weren't present in the archer game style. Some might argue that would make the game too easy, but my rebuttal to that is that you still have a competitive aspect in the leaderboard, and instead of the big challenge being actually finishing the levels, the challenge would be finishing the game with the highest score, like it is for Archer, since it's pretty easy to finish the levels there. I think as I played it, the game was too far unbalanced the other way when it came to the swordsman. Archer took me less than 5 tries to complete each time, whereas Swordsman took me at least 10 in each mode with only bare luck scraping me through for the one win that I did get. It's an issue of balancing more than anything, and doing that wouldn't really change the RNG aspects that might be the core of the game. It would just be a matter of providing an olive branch to save you from a premature death spiral, or to increase the amount of ranged attacks to balance against archers, or nerf the enemy archers when playing as the swordsman. If it wasn't so manufactured to be that way, I think I could be content in giving the benefit of the doubt, but it seems too intentional for me to let it slide. I don't deny it's addictive, but it's pretty much a game you only win by a small bit of planning and tactics, and mostly just repeating it until you get good picks, like playing a slot machine. To Raze I also felt a bit mean about, but I'm content to stick with my rating there. I really wanted to like the game, I did. The combat was fun, and whilst it was a bit janky and unpolished and very riddled with bugs, I really did enjoy the premise and the play. Unfortunately, the bugs were not forgivable to allow me to give it that better score, and having to stitch together a playthrough like a patchwork quilt is never really a good sign. The final boss confusion was a bit of an anti-climax, unfortunately, and the story was a pretty weak thread running through the middle. Sorry, To Raze, I really did want to give you more credit, but when the base stability of the game falls into question, I feel my hands are tied. Speaking of weak threads of stories, Jivana was the last one I felt like I was actually generous towards. I still feel conflicted, because the story was so oddly paced and non-fulfilling that it's actually kind of funny to think about. But again, the actual gameplay and mechanics were fun. I'm a sucker for a pretty environment, and the music was just really good. It would have been nice to have more open space to goof around in, as the game was fairly short in total, but that also made the impact of the weak story not as bad, because overall it didn't really amount to much. And I guess that sums up my total feelings, is that it was good conceptually and had some really nice parts, design and control comfort-wise, but that's about as far as it went. Having the same rating as Shadow Burglar and looking at them side by side, they're actually fairly similar in that aspect of having stories that just about carry the plot from start to end, are short but sweet gameplay-wise, and have their flaws but in slightly different areas. I will leave Jivana with its 7.5. To be honest, looking at the rest, I feel pretty comfortable that my judgment is good on them. The best rated games I had definitely deserve their spots. Atma was creative, and whilst the variant endings weren't as variant as I'd have liked, it was a really beautiful game and a good concept with heart that I could get behind. Endless Sky was almost the opposite visually, with the simple graphics and text and very basic premise, but the endless part of the title applied heavily to the opportunity and freedom the game style offered for you to play how you wanted, and the expanse of the map leaves so much space for exploration and different occurrences. It was quite surprising for the multi-editor project it is, like a bunch of people got a scrap of paper and one by one put them on a plate to make a stunning mosaic somehow. Super Animal Royale got its points for being an actual non-toxic battle royale game without being gimmicky or overly pay to win, and also having creative secondary game modes and good progression, though I recall the developer dropped a comment on my review video telling me that pretty much everything I said about the alternative game mode was wrong, so maybe I did rate it wrongly. Somehow I added 2 and 2 to make 27 in the process, and I'm not sure how, but that was my interpretation, and due to the rolling of the game modes I couldn't really go back and play it again to correct myself. As for the lowest rated game, I think it deserves to stay there. It's a game that's not really a game, it's a story without a story really, and I just recall confusion from my experience. But it's not bad enough to land into the bad score zone because the art style is nice, and for what it's trying to do it doesn't have any functional flaws really. So that's pretty much it for my re-rating, which again is kind of a cheap word for it since there's only really one game I'm re-rating this year. Sorry, Fanatic Zeal. And on the topic of it, let's discuss the non-rated games. Darkest Tales, Into the Nightmare, and Mythic Ocean Prologue were both demos for bigger, paid games, which I obviously didn't rate due to lack of complete content. Someone commented that Darkest Tales appears to be in the style of Hollow Knight, which, now I've started playing Hollow Knight, I can completely understand. There are some more thematically stylised elements in Darkest Tales, but they're riffs of Hollow Knight's base mechanics, such as mana to heal and killing enemies to replenish, levels with different routes to explore and abilities that are hidden initially until you unlock the other skills. I would call it inspired rather than theft though, and Darkest Tales goes its own way graphically with the really detailed full colour backgrounds. Mythic Ocean was a fun little immersion story demo, and I'd be interested to see how much further the content goes in the full game. I'm going to say I hope the finale of the full game doesn't come like the finale of the demo does, at some unspecified time when you hit a wall of either too long talking to people or having done a certain amount of tasks but not knowing which it is. I seem to get way more done in the first demo playthrough than the second, but I'm not really sure why or how it finishes. Project Speed 2 was the other game I played, the driving sandbox-esque game which I took too long to realise was early access, so monopolised my footage into a playtest rather than a review. I have an exciting update on this one. The developer of the game contacted me directly after my video format feedback, and in simple terms I'm keeping a finger on the pulse of its development. The game is being continuously updated with another update due to come out soon, and the dev expressed that they'd benefit from some playtesters. They're looking to improve the multiplayer content in due course as well, which obviously requires a few people to test. I'm going to be helping, but there's only one of me, so if you'd be interested in helping playtest the game, and or taking part in the multiplayer tests, feel free to drop a comment on the video and I can link you up to the dev. The game is free to play, and despite having a couple of DLCs, those don't bring in much in regard to revenue, so the playtesting would be a charity endeavour, so to speak. Saying that though, playtesting can be a fun hobby to get into for anyone who's a fan of games, as you get to goof around in a game as it grows, you can put your opinion forward to how it could be improved, and you get a bit of fun and influence. And as a result, the developer gets valuable feedback to help them learn, practice their development and create a portfolio. It can also be good if you're interested in game development yourself, as it might be a good way to get perspective on what bugs can happen and the process of how they're fixed. As said, the dev would appreciate any help, so please speak up if you think you'd be interested. As for my channels as a whole, I would like to first say thank you to those who followed me or watched my videos on Odysee. I'm still learning my way around the platform and don't do much other than post my videos. I'm making them all free to watch since I don't really understand the currency, but I'm going to look into it and try getting more familiar. Thank you to my YouTube viewers and those who've subscribed recently, and especially to those who've hung around from the start. My channel has got 113 subscribers at the time of this video, so thank you for stopping by and enjoying my content with me. I will continue to release on both platforms and still aim for the fortnightly uploads. I'd like to be able to make text posts to notify if videos will be late. Usually that happens when life stuff gets in the way, and I think you can do it on YouTube, but I don't know how, so I'm gonna have to find that out too. Something makes me think it's only a big channel thing though, so I might not be able to. But if I do miss uploads, know that it's likely because there's something happening in the real world. Big thank you again to all who viewed my videos and commented or suggested me games through the year. That's all I've got to say for this one. Enjoy the season and time of day it is wherever you're watching this, and I will get to work on the next video.